My name is Sue Lawrence Reeder. I live in the Lake District of Central Maine, and I was diagnosed with MS at age 30. In retrospect, I probably had symptoms of MS before that, but doctors were telling me, well, we're not sure what you have, but you definitely have something. And it looked like I was going to wind up with a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, which is a sister disease of MS. But in the period between age 25 and age 30, I started to develop neurologic symptoms. And it became pretty obvious after I had a couple of bouts of optic neuritis and numbness, blurred vision, and so on, that the diagnosis of MS was going to be in the cards for me. My greatest challenge with MS when right around that time is I had two very major attacks to the brainstem portion, which just left me with profound vertigo. And so I spent about the next 2 years being a very nauseous couch potato because I was just really unable to move my head off of anything center. It was like it's a gyroscope going crazy. And so I got to the point where I couldn't feed myself, had difficulty obviously walking, and that put me out of work for about 1.5 years, the first attack, and then it recurred about 6 months later, and again I lost a long period of employment. So those years was a period of about 4 years of my greatest problems with MS. They caused me to need a wheelchair, and then eventually graduate to a walker, and then to a cane. And it was, without a doubt, the most terrifying time in my life. I remember specifically one day sitting on the neuro floor in the hospital. I was there a lot. And just watching other people struggle to walk up and down the hall. And it just somehow seemed like there was a voice from my inner spirit that just told me, this is not you. This is not going to be you. You don't belong here. And from that moment on, I just made a full force effort to make that come true and make that my reality. So a lot of physical therapy came after that, and I tried basically everything that was available, massive doses of vitamins and minerals prescribed by the Princeton Brain Biocenter. I tried a very painful form of massage called Rolfing, which was awful, but maybe it did something. I also tried acupuncture and repeatedly listened to self-healing tapes of positive thinking and picturing yourself as a well person, a whole person. And that's basically what I adopted. And those are the things that got me somehow into a remission which lasted 11 years. So I've had some flare-ups in between then and now, but nothing was nearly as traumatic as the first 4 years. And the neurologist during that time leveled with me that it looked probable that I was going to have a secondary form of progressing MS. And it turned out that that wasn't the case. And I'm thrilled about that. During my life with MS, I've had basically 4 distinctively different careers. As I was getting symptoms and having major attacks, I had to leave my career in medicine because I simply could not keep up the pace. And so I spent my long periods of disability remotely studying electronics engineering because I thought, well, with computers coming on the market and everybody having one, this could give me a sit-down job where I could troubleshoot circuit boards for a living and not have to get up and move around a lot. And that worked out fine. I was employed in that field until I got optic neuritis in both eyes and lost my color vision. So when you can no longer tell a red wire from a green wire or a blue wire, that's not a really good thing to do. So I was back to the drawing board for employment, and just through chance encounters with people who saw, fortunately, some potential in me and took me under their wing to train me in their studio, I finally figured out what I had always wanted to be when I grew up. And I became a writer, producer, and director of film and video, and opened my own business. And we're just now starting our 24th year of business, and that's in Delaware. I wanted to extend the periods of time that I could spend outdoors every summer, so I decided to step aside from my everyday duties with the business, and I moved to Maine, where I can swim in our lake and kayak and fish and much cooler temperatures, which I'm sure every MS patient understands, since heat is just so awful for all of us. So while I was up here, about 10 minutes later, I was bored, and so I had brought along all the equipment that I used when I learned stained glass in a studio years ago. And I decided I would start making a few pieces here to give me something to keep me busy. And once I posted those on a couple of art sites on Facebook, business came in and I started taking commissions, and it became a full-time job. And my work now has been shown in 3 different galleries here in Maine. So it's great because it's a job that I can work at when I feel like I have a lot of energy and I can see clearly and things are working well. And then it's one that I can just come upstairs and chill out when I know that I've done too much. Since my diagnosis with MS, I've had the privilege to meet and spend some time with 2 very talented actors who also had MS. David Lander, who's probably best known for his role as Squiggy in Laverne and Shirley. He's also an author of a book called Fall Down Laughing. And also Terry Garr, whose role in Young Frankenstein and Tootsie, I mean, everybody remembers her wonderful talent in both of those. Both of these people had a couple of things in common. First, they both kept their diagnosis a secret from the business in an effort not to be turned down for roles. And they both talk about some ways that they would sort of hide their disability during scenes so that nobody would know. But they also both had just a tremendous sense of humor about MS, and that the best way to get through it was to find the humor in the silliest things and try to lighten the mood by just being positive and laughing at oneself and just not taking their disability quite so seriously. And that to me just was perfect, because I think that's the way you get through it, is you try to find the best and the funniest moments that you can to help you get through each day. When I was first diagnosed, it was a long time ago, and back in those days, most of the pamphlets that you could get about MS or the TV spots that would talk about MS referred to MS as the crippler of young adults. And that was terrifying, but it was also not necessarily true. And I think the most common misconception that people have about the disease is that you will eventually wind up totally disabled. And that couldn't be further from the truth for many, many people with MS. Now, it's not true for everyone. Some people do have very difficult cases, but with the new medicines and therapies that they have these days, a lot of people live very, very normal, active lives. And I'm living proof that it can happen. MS can start very devastatingly, but turn out to be not as bad as you feared. And I think the most important thing for people to remember is that you need to plan your day and prioritize and have a purpose. You need to have a purpose. What I hope people remember from my message is that you have to stay positive and not think of MS as an insurmountable obstacle in your life. It can have some very serious and difficult times, but there is so much hope out there. And I try to stay away from groups, especially on Facebook, where they discuss MS. They have lots of different Facebook groups, because I get very discouraged when I see newly diagnosed people who their first question is, okay, now I have my diagnosis confirmed. How soon can I get on disability? Because to me, it just upsets me so much because they simply seem like they are giving up and giving in and choosing a path for their life that doesn't have to be. There is always hope, and if you work towards helping yourself heal by doing as much exercise as you can, being upbeat and optimistic, and have a plan and a purpose, do joyous things in your life. If it's working from home that you have to do, that's fine, or volunteer. There's such great, good feelings that you get from helping others. And it's a wonderful way then to feel that, you've done something good and that's going to come back to you as well. And I like to think of MS as like a little cloud that follows me around every day. Some days it rains on me, but other days it's just there. And I can't see it, I can't feel it, but I know it's there. And I just continue to be optimistic and hopeful at age almost 73 that in my lifetime there will be a cure. And then maybe I won't have to carry an umbrella anymore.